This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted as always to be joined by trainer Ben Davison. We're here at the MTK Performance Centre in Harlow. Now that's all out of the way. Happy New Year, Ben. Nice to see you.
And you, mate?
How you doing?
All good, you?
Not bad, thanks. Not bad. Thanks very much for having me down to the gym today. Always a pleasure to see you in action. And you're, well, I was going to say you're growing stable, but it's grown several times since the last time I was here. Got yourself... I think 4 new ones since I was last here. Mark Dickinson, both McCormacks. Pretty much, I'm sure there's some. Will Corley, who of course made a very impressive professional debut. Royston. Why don't you tell me, Ben?
Yeah, the McCormacks. When was the last time you was down here?
I haven't been down here since about 6 weeks before Ramirez Taylor. So probably March 2021.
Yeah, no, Mark and Will was already here at the time, but the McCormacks, Royston, they've recently joined. So, yeah, good stable, very good stable.
How does it change your role? Obviously, when we kind of first met each other, you were working sort of specifically with 1 or 2 fighters, Tyson, Billy Joe, see Isaac Lowe kind of fleeting in and out at the time. How does that change your role as a trainer, taking on that much more and having that many more fighters under your stewardship?
Yeah, it just means a busier day, doing what you want to be doing, not the stuff that you don't want to be doing. So, and obviously a few of them that are at the top level are only boxing once, twice a year. Well, not once a year, but twice a year or so. So there's times that they're spent out at the gym, and in that time, this is what I love to do. So why not spend that time building these top prospects?
Rather than me trying to memorise your entire schedule or trying to recall your entire schedule off the top of my head, I see where you're trying to do it now. Why don't you tell me about what you've got coming up in the first quarter of February, March? Because it's difficult to keep up. It's so much easier when you only had 1 or 2 fights, Ben.
We've got coming up potentially Lee McGregor, depending on a few things first. We've got Josh Taylor, obviously, end of Feb. That's Lee McGregor potentially in early Feb as well, if that comes off. Just waiting to find out on a few things. Josh Taylor, end of Feb. Then we've got a very busy March. It's looking like... Don't want to miss anyone out. First up will be Lee Wood against Wood-Conlan. Next up will be Royston, looks like making his debut. Then potentially Mark, Will, Pat, Luke, maybe making their debuts on a card that Mark and Will be on as well, potentially.
Let's start with Lee McGregor. He's not had the best of luck over probably 18 months, 2 years or so, various fights falling through. Of course, this week we were greeted, we were broken with the very sad news of Cash Farouk having to retire. Unfortunately, Lee McGregor's rematch with him, signed, sealed and delivered as it was, will now no longer happen. What's the plan for him in 2022?
Well, there's talk of an IVF eliminator / final eliminator. But we're just waiting to find out if the other side's going to take it, because that's happened a few times and a few haven't taken it. So just waiting to find out that and then see some options from there. And that's why I'm saying there's a date scheduled, penciled in for Lee, early Feb, depending on what the situation is with this IVF eliminator, because if they take it, will they let us still have this fight, etc., etc. So just waiting to find out a little bit more information on that. But he's in the gym and training, so he'll be boxing early Feb.
I haven't spoke to you since his last fight against Legrand. I spoke to him about it earlier. Not his best night at the office, obvious reasons. Was dropped in the fight for the first time as a pro. Haven't spoke to you since then. What was your thoughts on the overall evening? And obviously you've had plenty of time now to reflect and work in the gym on it.
Yeah, a little bit of complacency and just got carried away. It's exactly what we said to him about being patient, being composed. Knew it was going to take a few rounds to close the gap. Just had to be patient and smart about it, but wanted to go out there and let his hands go nice and early. You know, great atmosphere in the ring walk, and just got a little bit carried away. Getting dropped, it wasn't really like a solid shot that put him on his arse. It was more of something that he actually done sparring, preparing for the fight. Was in distance, popped up a little bit too tall, feet getting caught, orthodox southpaw. At the same time as a shot landing, albeit knocked down, scored a knockdown, and something that he had to overcome, and that's part of experience. So it's a learning very good learning fight at a good level as well.
I was just about to say that. How important is it that it's never a great time to get dropped or lose rounds in any fight, but certainly on the way up, it's better to do it rather than when you get into those big marquee fights. How important is it that he learns from that it's happened at this stage of his career as opposed to when he's getting into those big fights down the line?
Yeah, of course. He's only had 11 fights, so he's learning at a good level, at British European level. So that was a European title defence. So it's a good level that he's learning at. Tough way to learn, but everybody believes in him. So and he's pulling up the goods. So like you say, it's great for him to experience things, before he gets to world level. And it's all invaluable experience, good and bad.
Staying with the Scotsman, we'll do them by nationality, I think, or weight classes is usually how I do it, but we'll stick with the Scots to start with. Josh Taylor, saw him today for the first time in a little while. He's looking in much better shape today than the last time I saw him in Edinburgh, but let's not dwell too much on that. How is he? Obviously 6 weeks out from his rescheduled bout with Jack Catterall.
Yeah, he's all good. Obviously he's in the thick of camp at the minute, so training hard, tired, fatigued, tough. At this moment in time, it's not about dominating personal bests and all the rest of it. It's about putting in the work that's going to create that towards the end of camp. So he's in an intense stage of camp, and that'll all pay rewards for him peaking on the night.
Known Josh for a fair while now, and one of the things that we spoke about today, we've spoken about in the past, and I'm sure during the time that you guys have been together, you've been exposed to his frustrations that can creep in sometimes. Josh, by his own admission, perfectionist, and get to the level that he's achieved in sport without being something like that. In your role as a trainer, how do you manage that? How do you navigate that through a camp for a top level fighter like Josh?
Yeah, everybody's different. Sometimes you have to be careful with your words, but to be honest with you, I'm not really like that. Like, I'll say if something's good, I'm going to say it's good. If something's bad, I'm going to say it's bad. If I ask them to do something and they don't do it, I'm going to say to them, this happened because you didn't do that. But as I say, sometimes, boxing's a tough sport mentally, emotionally, physically, so sometimes you have to select the timing and choice of words, and that's part of a skill and a quality that a coach must have. But I feel like we get that dynamic right.
Jack Catterall. Talk to me about Jack Catterall as an opponent. How difficult a fight could this potentially be? How easy of a fight could it be if Josh is able to implement the game plan that I'm sure you guys have been working on?
Yeah, I think it depends on how Josh goes about the fight. I think that if Josh goes in the ring at 100% and gets it right on the night, I think that it's a potential showcase performance for Josh. But I think that, not that it's going to be, but if there's a case of overlooking and don't really have that get up and go, then of course we've seen it before where mistakes can happen. And at top level you can't afford for those things to happen. So we're constantly drumming it back into Josh's head that everything's at risk here. Everything that he's worked his whole life for it goes up in the air when you step in that ring, and it's Josh's job not to defend them but to go out there and earn them again, because every time you step in that ring as a champion, those belts go up in the air when the first bell sounds.
We've spoken in the past. I know you're kind of the new era, I guess, of trainers who, S&C and diet and nutrition is a very important thing. With that being said, how long has he got 140 pounds? Josh sat there and said that if he wanted to, he could do 140 for the rest of his career. Obviously, there's the Terence Crawford fight at 147. There's legacy goals for him to achieve by moving up in weight. Do you think we see him move up to 147 in 2022?
I don't really know. We'll have to wait and see. Like what he's saying, he's not a liar. People don't believe it, but he can make that weight comfortable. He does make that weight comfortable, and he can forever make that weight. But like you say, the problem is when you're a 4-belt undisputed champion, there's 4 mandatories, mandatory after mandatory after mandatory, and you've got all these mandatories here, but you might have a lucrative fight there that you can't take because you're tied up with all these mandatories. So we just have to see how the land lies. But at the minute, we're just fully focused on Jack Catterall. We don't even discuss about what we're going to do next, because we can't afford to overlook anybody.
Moving up in weight, obviously one of the kind of the standout examples in my head is Ricky Hatton when he moved from 140 to 147. Obviously at 140, very strong, moved up to 147, boxed Louis Collazo, fully fledged welterweight at the time, didn't have the same physical advantages. Could you see that potentially being a similar case for Josh, albeit obviously having more skills to kind of navigate than just having a size advantage at 140?
Yeah, well, there's an element depending on who he's boxing. There's an element of depending on how he's going to need to go about that fight.
Let's say Terence Crawford.
Terence Crawford's come up through the weights. I don't think, if you're looking to go in there and be physical and try to manhandle and rush Terence Crawford, then you're asking for problems, as we've seen with Sean Poulter. He's not the biggest, but he's had a bit of time to grow into the weight. And then there's other guys out there that are bigger at welterweight, physically strong. As I said, Terence Crawford's come through the weights. There's some of those guys that are realistically like middleweights, and middleweights have pulled themselves down to welterweights. They're really big guys. So it depends on who you're boxing and how you need to go about the fight.
Moving on, so we've done the Scots. Right, who are we going to go for now? I tell you what, let's start with the WBA featherweight champion, Lee Wood. Of course, we're a matter of weeks away from his bout with Wood-Conlan. Tough fight for Lee Wood. He won the world title against Kanzu, still not sure how to pronounce that one, but anyway. And goes straight in against Wood-Conlan, as we all know, a very seasoned amateur, former world champion. Tough fight for Lee in his first defence.
Yeah, tough fight for Lee, tough fight for Mick. Both guys are very versatile. That's what makes it an interesting fight. Both guys can box on the front foot, back foot, do it both orthodox, southpaw. So it makes it a very interesting one because Mick's a good fighter. Mick can make adjustments, as I say, he's versatile, but he can also adjust through a round. So it's important that we've got Lee now down on when Mick does this, you need to make this adjustment, you need to make that adjustment. When he does this, he's going to look to do that, etc., etc. We're going to go about the fight. We're confident in the plan that we've already got. And it's just about keep repeating it and making sure that Lee's got it for on the night.
General consensus is that Wood has the power advantage. Conlan may have the skill advantage. What are your thoughts on that?
Obviously, Lee's got the power advantage. With any featherweight in there, it's ridiculous. It still surprises me. People think, I thought I was making it up. It still surprises me. When I put the pads on, he hits the pads. It shocks me. Everybody in there, the boys kept saying to the McCormacks, and then afterwards they was like, it's ridiculous. They didn't think it was going to be like that. They were thinking, he could punch, but punch for a featherweight. They was like, he could punch like a light heavyweight. So of course he's got the power advantage. Mick with his skill advantage. I mean, look, if it was boxed over 3 rounds, of course, you'd favour Mick in amateur gloves, etc., etc. But it's not. It's boxed over 12 rounds. So with 8-ounce gloves on. In my mind, it could be difficult in stages, for sure. We respect Mick's skills, but we're confident in the plan that we've got. And if we can do a good job in getting Lee to get that plan right, and understanding exactly what he needs to do in each moment, then I'm very, very, very confident of a Lee Wood stoppage win.
Also Wood-Conlan, but it's also Davison, Booth. Your opportunity to pit your wits against another high-level trainer in Adam Booth. Looking forward to that?
Yeah, of course. You always look forward to going up against other coaches in the world. But at the same time, obviously, it's about the fighters. But of course, as I said, because both guys are so versatile, there's going to be a very tactical element to this as well. So, as you say, Adam's a good coach. Mick's a tricky fighter, and I believe that there's tougher tests out there in the division, but we still have to get it right. If we get it wrong, we lose this fight. It's as simple as that. But as I said, I'm very, very confident in the plan that we've put together and making sure that Lee gets it right on the night. Right.
So you did an interview this week. Well, you didn't do it this week, I don't think. It was released this week. Josh's press conference with Steve Bunce, BBC Radio 5 Live, where you made some comments about the standard of some of the training in the UK, made some comments that I think it's safe to say riled a few people, drew some negative feedback. Just first and foremost, really, your response to the criticism of your criticism, as it were, in that interview.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, there's all this, don't be fake, say what you know, be true, be real, etc., etc. That's my opinion, simple as that. Whether it was how I put it or the way it was quoted, I don't know, but obviously it come across as though I was putting myself on a hierarchy and as though I was talking about every coach. Definitely not. I've got a great relationship with some of the coaches. As you saw, Tony's been in here today. We always go to his gym always comes to us sparring. I respect Tony, works hard, and works smart. As we was talking about earlier, he brings in guys, he brings in Dan Lawrence, S&C, to cover areas that he may not be the best at. I do the exact same thing. I respect that. Gets up early, works hard all through the day, does the boys 2 sessions a day, studies the boys' opponents. I respect that. Shane McGuigan works hard. I respect that. Shane's another one where people would say, this is getting to my point of what I was meaning. Shane's another one where people would say he only had success because, or only got to work with these fighters, then he had success because of who his dad is. He works hard. If he weren't a good coach and didn't work hard, he wouldn't keep getting results. Joe Gallagher's another one. I'm saying, not that I know Shane, but obviously I know the boys here that can vouch for him, etc., etc. So my point wasn't across the board to all the coaches. My point was across the board to the coaches that are going to say, Ben only got lucky because he got to work with this fighter. Ben only got lucky because he got to work with that fighter. They say that, almost as if I work closely to MTK, so that's why I get to work with these fighters, or MTK tells these fighters to go with me. No fighter's going to get told who they're going to go with, And the reason I ended up working closely with MTK was because I was having success with fighters. Working with the fighters first. Same situation with the McCormacks here. They come to me before they decided where they were signing anywhere. And they had choices to go to any coaches they wanted. Same as Josh had a choice to go with any coach in the world he wanted to. So my point is to the coaches that say, I've been in this 30, 40 years and this person got lucky, that person got lucky. I'm not only talking about myself, I'm talking about that mentality, I've got no respect for that. No respect for that. You earn what you get. You put the work in, you get the results. It's as simple as that. If people don't like that, then we're not the same. And I have no issue with that. So yeah, I'm not putting myself on a hierarchy. Do I think that the average standard of coaching is poor? Yes, for sure, I do believe that. But do I mean that to all the coaches? Of course not. As I say, I respect, and I've got a great relationship with some of the coaches in the UK and across the pond. So I just respect the work ethic. I respect someone that is going to work hard and do their absolute best to get the best out of that fighter. That's what I respect.
So I was just distracted there by the mathematician.
That quote actually brought a few people out of the woodwork. Not that I have a look, because I'm not overly keen on it, but I see a couple of people that felt like they had to justify themselves. Well, that's to do, that's nothing to do with me. If you feel like you need to prove, I did this, then that's you, I'm me, not a problem. If I feel like the average standard of coaching, do I think that all the coaches in the UK, the top coaches in the UK are poor? No. Do I think that the average is poor? Yes. Do I think the standard of coaching, and I don't know why it said in the UK, I might have said the UK, but I actually mean it in general, the average standard of coaching in boxing is extremely poor compared to other sports. You look at high school basketball, look at their warm-ups, how structured everything is, how structured film study at high school level. They sit down together and go through film study. Their warm-ups specific. They go over the opponents, scouting reports on paper. As I said before, film study. Like it's not an opinion, that's a fact. Do you know, is that average at amateur level in boxing? No, it's not. It's not standard. It's not standard at low-level pros. It's not standard at any level in boxing. So I'll say that basketball is exactly the same for American football. So that's just my opinion.
With that being
And
said,
actually, a lot of people said that they agreed with it. So, but they just think that I'm not. This is another point. A lot of people said that they agree with it. Sorry to cut you off there. A lot of people said that they agree with it, but that I need to be humble. Okay. Now, I don't see how that has anything to do with about me being humble. What being humble is, in my opinion, is that when the lads finish sparring, I sit down and re-watch it, because I might not have got that wrong. I'll re-watch it. When they fight, I'll re-watch it. Could I have done something better? I check myself. Can I be perfect every time, first time? No. That's being humble. I bring in guys like Lee Wiley, ask questions, bounce ideas, take advice. That's being humble, in my opinion. I bring in Dan Lawrence to work with the S&C with the boys because he knows more than me in that area. That's being humble. What's not being humble, in my opinion, and I'm not picking any names because I don't know any names, but I'm just saying the general consensus or a general idea, is someone who's been in it 30, 40 years. No, you do it my way. That's not being humble. That's just my opinion.
with that being said, can you understand why some people hearing that and hearing those words would be or would feel disrespected?
Yeah, I suppose so. But look, I'm not here to, I was asked on something. I'm not here to please everybody. I'm not going to please everybody. You can never please everybody. Even if you try your best to please everybody, you can't please everybody. So I think that there's probably an unjust element of maybe the way I come across on a camera like that, put myself on a hierarchy, but none of the lads ever have anything like that to say. You know me, you'd probably disagree with that, I'd like to think. So, yeah, like my job's to ask the question and I gave my opinion. If I that's something that I do. I look at other sports. What do they do? How do they improve themselves? I love those Amazon all or nothing things, you know. What areas can I take from that? That's what this whole facility is about. I looked at how other sports have their training facilities, and I said that level of facility needs to be in boxing. I want to produce that. Is that wrong? Because I think that the average standard of a boxing gym isn't as good as it could be. It doesn't match elite level facilities in other sports. Like, I don't think that's wrong. I think if anything, that's a trait that I'm proud to have.
Final question on it. You have the well-publicised fallout with Mark Tibbs last year in the middle of the year around Canelo Saunders. Some people seem to think that what you said was a response to an interview clip from Peter Fury that's been doing the rounds again. I know that's an old clip. Just clear those things up for me.
No, it's not pointed out to anybody. Like, I wouldn't even call it a fallout with Mark. He's what he's like. He does his thing. Peter, I haven't got a problem with Peter. I saw Peter at a show in Newcastle. I understand people want to go, oh, this to that, that to that. Why would I have a problem with Peter? What have I got anything to do with Peter? What have I got to do anything with what Peter said in the video? Nothing to do with me. And even if it was about me, I'm not going to get on a video and go, oh, I think this, I think that, blah, 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 you know, in a reply video, you know. What I said was exactly them. They're considered top coach in the UK, no? Do they work hard? Peter's got a world champion in the gym, worked hard with his son, Yui, worked hard with Tyson, had success there. So, and I know, obviously, through Tyson, I know how hard he pushes the boys, so I respect that. Obviously, I don't really know him. I've seen him and said hello, etc., etc. But what I'm saying is not to any individual coach. What I'm saying is across the board. And I think I've made a good point there, in the sense that the average standard of coaching in other sports beats the average standard of coaching in boxing. And I think that if anybody that had a look at the standard of coaching in other sports would agree with that. Do I put myself in that category? Is everything I do as good as what the best coaches over there can do in other sports? No, that's why I look here and try to strive to beat that.
Do you feel like you're unfairly treated?
I'm not really worried about that, to be honest with you.
No, that's a question.
No, I don't think I'm unfairly treated. I think that, like, my job is to get the trust and the belief of the boxers that I work with, and I have that. I think that there's a misconception to a degree. I think people think, he's young, he can't tell this fighter what to do, and they're going to listen because of an age thing. But like, that is the case. Otherwise, that's not coaching. So yeah, like, probably because of that, because of, like, you've asked me, do I feel like I'm mistreated? I feel like what I'm supposed to say is, yeah, you know, and it hurts my feelings and blah, 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 blah. So I think it comes across as, he's arrogant, he's this. No, it's just, like, if I let it, any human, if I went through, he said this, he said that, he said that, of course, look, we've seen it with people in boxing, suffer depression from things like that. We've seen it with people on TV shows, suffer depression from things like that. And we've seen, unfortunately, suicide from things like that. So, of course, everybody's human. If you was under constant criticism and you was constantly looking at that, of course it would affect you. It would affect me. It would affect anybody. Naturally, 100%. It's not that I don't care, Mr. Tough Guy. No, but I'm extremely busy in here. My full focus is on this and on all these boys and helping them achieve their goals. I don't have time to get caught up in all of those things. Maybe if I did, maybe I would be, but you know. So yeah, like, my only focus is on how the boys see me and having the respect from them, and I have that, so that's what's important to me.
Okay, moving back to the boxing and the boxers. What's my thoughts on
that whole subject?
I think I think that you made some good points, but I think you should have kept them to yourself. Yeah. And I've said this to you off camera.
Do you think that's because it comes across as putting myself on a hierarchy, doing it in that manner? Not
necessarily putting yourself on a pedestal or putting yourself at the top of the tree or anything like that. But I think that when you have a sport like boxing, and as we know, boxing is up and down and changes like the weather, I could imagine how another coach would respond to those comments, which is why I feel that potentially the way in which they were said should have been slightly more. But I understand your point from the sense of people want honesty, keep it 100, all of this sort of stuff.
I didn't even mean it in that manner. And of course, like, naturally, if another coach said that, my honest opinion is, again, like, it might come across wrong, but my honest opinion would be like, well, I feel like I work very hard that can't be based on me. And even if it was based on me, I wouldn't feel like it can be, or I'd think, well, you don't know. Like, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know me. You never spent a day in the gym with me, so how do you know that? So it wouldn't bother me. But I suppose I understand, like, look, of course, there's a lot of coaches that, and I'm not talking about these known coaches, I'm talking about coaches that may have been in the sport for 30, 40 years and haven't really been able to get to where they may have wanted to get to. And the reason that they always go to is he got lucky. It's only because of this fighter. He only got that because of that. Like, that's just not, I just don't understand that type of mindset. And it's never the way, you know. I didn't get to so-and-so because, you know, so-and-so's fault. It was because of him, and I didn't have a good relationship with him, so I didn't end up getting there. It's always someone else's fault, you know. Whereas, like I said earlier, I feel like I always look at myself, and if one of my fighters is getting something wrong, what can I do better? What have I done wrong? Why is he not getting it? And I'll address myself. I don't look at, it's because he just can't do it. Like, I'll look at myself. So yeah, I didn't mean it about any specific thing. specific coach. I just meant it across the board. But as I say, going on about my point of view, I understand what you're saying. I just don't think I would have took it if another coach was to say that. If another coach was to say that I'm shit, like, it wouldn't really bother me, if I'm honest. If one of my fighters turned around and went, he's shit, terrible, I ain't got a clue, then I'd think, then I would take offence to it, of course.
Okay, I understand your way of thinking. Oh God, getting on with it now. Back to the boxers. So I watched Mark Dickinson spar today. First of all, wow. Second of all, when am I going to see him box again?
In March, I think. The perfect student.
He is really good.
Yeah, he's the perfect student. Just absolute pleasure. Like, he sits and watches not just the best fighters, he'll sit and watch every session that he can possibly sit and watch. To pick up little things, get extra coaching. If you ask him to watch a fight, I know for a fact he's going to go back and watch it right away. He'll come back, he'll ask questions. If you ask him to do something, he'll do it there and then. As I said, just the perfect student.
Going to be campaigning at super middleweight once he settles things out. Middleweight, maybe, yeah, down to middleweight. How quick are you looking to move him? Obviously, Felix Cash, who we saw in here today with Tony Sims, vacated the British title. I mean, we're not going to name who he was sparring, but obviously sparring at a very good level today and, more than handled himself. How quick do you want to move him? And the question I always have for coaches when you have a prodigious talent, which I believe him to be, is how do you stimulate that?
Ticking boxes, I suppose, is how I would say it. He's had 2 6-rounders. I do want to move him quickly, and this is the reason why he had a quick 30-second blowout in his first one. I knew he went into that fight with the mindset of, I'm going to do 6 rounds here. Went into the next one, I knew his mindset was going to be, I'm going to get another blowout. So I picked him. Actually, you come in and mentioned it, actually. A very, very durable guy. A couple of weights above, to teach Mark a lesson to say, you're not going to go in there and look to blow these people out because you'll very quickly come unstuck if you have that mindset. So funny enough, after 2 rounds trying to take the fella out and loading up a little bit, being a bit inefficient, he come back after the 2 rounds and went, I'm going to stop trying to knock him out now. He knew that he'd made that mistake and learned that lesson very quickly, very quick learner. So that was a positive, and I wanted to do that and get that done quickly. Fantastic to get 3, 4, 5, 6 blowouts, brilliant. But to move someone quickly, which seems like we both feel like he can be, he needs to learn that lesson quickly. So, yeah, got that done. Next will be a challenge as someone with a decent record, and a fight where the guy's coming to win. So. Another step, hopefully over 8 rounds, might be over 6, but hopefully over 8, another stepping stone, and just tick the boxes quickly, but not too quickly.
Okay, we look forward to that. More Mark Dickinson, please. We haven't spoken about Will Corley, another debutant that you've had in the gym. You weren't there at his fight. I believe you were at Devin Haney. Was it the Devin Haney?
Yeah,
was that it?
Back for Shabazz and Will boxed on the same night.
Right, okay, yeah. So you came back for Shabazz. Very impressive debut from Will Corley. Seemed to rave reviews across the board. How did you feel he boxed on his debut, with casting your analytical eye on his performance?
Yeah, he boxed well. There was a few things in there, of course. He boxed very well, sorry. A few things in there, of course, as naturally, even at the top level, best of levels, there's always things you can improve on. But a little bit could see he was a little bit keen to get the stoppage. Unfortunately, Will's fight was only a 4-round fight, not a 6-round fight like the rest of the boys have started on. So that'll be next on the box. And again, Will, especially in that division, he'll be able to be moved quickly. So good debut. Get the 6 rounds ticked off, maybe twice, and then maybe 1 8-rounder, and then by that point I think we'll be looking at titles for sure.
You mentioned Shabazz Masood there, of course. It had a significant layoff in his career, was able to get back in there. What's the plan for him this year? I know that you've been trying to push him on for titles now for 18 months, 2 years. I know the Michael Rama-Beletsa fight was one that was kind of, that dragged its feet, should we say, for a period of time. What's the plan for Shabazz Masood in 2022?
Yeah, well, with that win, he's just been ranked with the WBA, so we will, ideally in a perfect world, you could get a domestic title, but at the minute it just looks tied up with all different sorts of things. So if that's not the case, then we'll move him on to international titles and, again, get some boxes ticked off. Funny enough, I've had an opponent sent over today that they're looking to match him with. Been in there with the likes of Navarrete, etc., at good points in their career, not very early in their career. A very experienced guy, so we'll be having a look at him over the next few days and decide if he's the right next fight. But activity is key for Shabazz now, as you said, long inactive spell, so that's the important thing, is keeping him active and keeping him at a good level being active.
Okay, well, last but by no means least, guys, it used to be really easy doing an interview with you. It still used to take 40 minutes, to be fair, even when you had 1 or 2 fighters. But anyway, Devin Haney. Random one, but anyway. Devin Haney, under your stewardship or part of the training team, alongside Mickey Bay, his dad, of course. Church, we can't let Church go without mentioning him. What's the plan with Devin Haney moving forward? Actually, go back. I haven't spoken to you since the Jojo Diaz fight. What did you make of his performance overall?
Good performance. There was a few things in there that could have and should have been a little bit better. There was from our, again, going over our own work, could have been a little bit better from ourselves in the preparation. And then in the fight, there was a few things there that maybe we discussed that maybe wasn't quite, that showed in the fight that could have been a little bit better. But that's all part of progression, It's only the second camp of us working together. And so I just love about him the mentality that he's got. Again, talking about mentalities earlier, I love this mentality. The moment the fight ended, he walked over and everybody knew he'd won, but he was like wanting feedback before the scorecards had been put out, and I could sense that he wasn't quite happy with his own performance. But that is the mentality that you've got to have, Leonard Ellaby before was telling me about a story when Floyd would beat the likes of Miguel Cotto, the likes of Canelo, and everybody would be saying about how good he was and how this and how that, and Floyd would be in the changing rooms and saying, not good enough for everybody in the gym Monday. That's the mentality that you've got to have. Devin's got that mentality, and I just absolutely love it. And that's one of the reasons why I just believe that his ceiling is so high, so high. So yeah, another good victory. 2 great wins in Linares and Jojo Diaz as well. Gamboa before that. But mostly those 2 wins, fantastic wins, and hopefully that Cambosos fight comes off.
Do you think that's realistically likely for Devin Haney's next fight? Kind of the missing puzzle, as it were, and the undisputed crown?
Yeah, I think that it's so rare for anybody to even get a chance to box for the undisputed, for any fighter. I think it's an opportunity that both guys, Devin and George, have both got to take, because how often does that opportunity come up? Again, talking about their mandatories earlier on in this interview, very easy to, do you know what, I can't keep up with the mandatories, going to have to vacate one, then it becomes a messier puzzle to have to try and solve. So while the situation's there, I think, it's a proper legacy type fight. So something that has to get done for both fighters. Here's
a question. Devin Haney, for the last probably 3 or 4 fights, I've heard whispers that he's tired away. He's a big old boy for 135 pounds. He's, 22?
Just turned 23 before.
Just turned 23 before that fight. What happens if he moves up to 140 and Josh Taylor's still there?
Well, obviously Josh and Devin aren't going to box each other, because obviously we all work together. So, obviously other people have asked that. It's just not something that's going to happen. Is it viable or possible for Josh to keep defending every single belt and maintain that undisputed thing? Probably not. So we'll have to see how the land lies, but them 2 aren't going to box each other because of exactly that reason. So yeah.
Devin Haney versus Josh Taylor, who wins? Ben Davison, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social and having us down at the gym today with you and your growing stable of fighters. I won't make you answer that last question. I'll catch up with you soon.
No problem.